Hey, welcome to Phoenix Kitchen. Today we're making decadent, delicious, homemade beef bacon. Let's see how we did it. All right, to start with, we're going to be curing our beef belly. We're going to be doing this with a dry cure, which will turn into a wet brine over the course of a week. So I've got my vacuum sealer out, getting that bag made and create it in the correct size so that it'll be ready once I've got the meat rubbed. Once we get that all together, we'll seal it up and put it in the fridge. Now we are working with a 5-pound piece of pork belly. We ordered this from Porter Road Butchers online. This is not a sponsored video, but just letting you know. A lot of times when you need a specialty cut of meat that's not available at a local supermarket, they are the way to go. You can pick that up. It's shipped. They come frozen, packed on dry ice. Everything I've ordered from them has always been correct. It is not supermarket level meat. It's a way step above. You're talking grade A prime, farm raised, fresh, butchered properly, packaged and sent. I can't recommend it enough. There are other places you can order from, and depending on where you are in the country, might save you on some shipping if it's a little closer. But for me, this is about 80 miles away. It works out very well. If you order a large order, you end up with free shipping anyway. So we're going to get this spice rub all set up and measured out for 5 pounds. That's the recipe that you'll find down below. It can obviously be adjusted depending on the size of the cut that you have. Once we get it all measured out, we're going to get it rubbed in and into the vacuum seal. So this particular spice blend that we're using, it's going to be like regular bacon as far as the salt, the sugar, and the curing salt. But because this is beef, it's a stronger tasting meat. The texture is a little different than when you're dealing with pork. So we're going to be using more salt, but it's not going to come out tasting saltier. We just need the extra salt. But we're going to add a few extra things to really make that beef stand out and give it a really rich, robust flavor. Those things are going to include cloves, allspice, black pepper, and nutmeg. So we'll get these carefully measured out using, by the way, dark brown sugar. Normally in pork bacon, I use a lighter brown sugar, but we want that extra molasses. Once again, going for that dark, rich, vibrant flavor to really stand out against the red meat. So we'll get these measured out and then rubbed into the meat. So something that you're going to notice here, as I'm getting into my allspice, there's not quite enough left in my bottle. It's a little pack there. I get that part out and measured, but then I can go back to my storage and I've got a bag of allspice. The reason I have that, we're lucky enough to have a locally owned supermarket that carries bulk spices. And listen, I can buy a bottle of the spice at a place like Kroger and pay $5 or $6 for it, or I can go down and use that little Ziploc bag and pay about $1.50 to refill this thing 2 to 3 different times, which is what we're doing here. If you're lucky enough to have a place that has bulk spices, it is a wonderful thing to get into price-wise if you cook a lot. Ordering on Amazon is great, but they usually want you to buy a pound or 2 at a time, and the spices can just go bad before you have a chance to use them. Being able to buy like this, you can buy just a few ounces all the way up into, whatever you need. Just something to keep in mind. All right, I had a bowl big enough to hold what I measured out, but definitely not enough to get those mixed. And I do want them mixed well so that as we're rubbing them onto the meat, we're getting a nice, smooth, even coverage. So we transferred to a larger bowl. We're just going to get those all mixed around. All right, so getting this beef belly out of the packaging, rinsed off with a little cool water, give you a good little view there. You've got some really great marbling. a nice fat layer in between the layers of beef, this thing's going to turn out some really good striped bacon. Now, because we rinsed this off, we do want to go ahead and pat it dry. We're not looking for any excess water. We're going to get our dry rub on. So we'll make sure that we've gotten that water off. While we're doing that, we're also inspecting the meat. If there's any little tears, big hanging chunks of fat, anything that needs to come off, it'll give us that opportunity to get that trimmed up so that they do not burn up in the cook. All right, so I've got the belly on the pan instead of just flat on my cutting board, and that's mainly so I can keep up with the spice. I'm going to be rubbing in, and this is a large amount of spices. And as I'm rubbing that around, obviously it's going to kind of go everywhere. The pan will catch it, and I'll be able to make sure then that all of the spices make it into the vacuum bag rather than letting them fly all around my board and off onto the counters and be wasted. So we want to make sure that we're really rubbing this in. We're going to get all the nooks and crannies, make sure that everything is covered with the cure. Once we've gotten this all rubbed in, we'll move it into our vacuum bag. One thing for sure, this would actually be just a little easier if you have someone around to help you out and hold that bag open. If you've ever messed with vacuum seal bags, you know they don't open that large, right? So this is going to be pretty tight around here. And then of course this meat being just out of the refrigerator, it's not exactly firmed up. So it's a little fun getting it in there. We're going to be scraping seasoning with the edges of the bag. And that's going to be very important to remember before you seal it. We're going to have to go in and clean around the edges of the bag so that you don't end up with all those spices into your vacuum sealer, and so that you can get a good solid seal on this. But it did go ahead and fit. We're going to go ahead and get the rest of these spices in and get it cleaned up and then sealed up. All right, we've got that edge nice and clean. Get this into the vacuum portion of the vacuum sealer. Get the bag all flattened out and ready. We close it down and lock it. This vacuum sealer does have the selection of either dry or moist. Even though this is technically dry, I am selecting moist and vacuum sealing. The reason for that, on the moist setting, it doesn't seal quite as firmly as it does on dry, and I need just a little bit of wiggle room in there because all of this salt is going to pull moisture out of the beef. So what we're going to end up with in 7 days of curing, it's going to really end up in a wet brine inside this bag. It'll still be nice and tight. Everything's going to work out right. You see here, all of the spices are kind of sitting on top of the meat, vacuum sealed in there. As we flip this every day and massage it, those spices are going to melt into that moisture and become that wet brine and then be absorbed back into the meat, causing a lot of delicious flavor all the way through to the center. And don't forget to put a date on the bag so you'll know when you started the cure. All right, so we're going to be curing for 7 days in our refrigerator. So we're going to come in each day and we're going to bring this bag out and we're going to give it a little massage. Now, this is really important for the first 3 to 4 days because you can see here we've got the moisture that's starting, but the spices are still sitting there. We're going to help to get this rubbed in further, get those spices mixed in with the liquid so they dissolve faster so they can be absorbed back in. Now, just like regular bacon, we are flipping it each day. But here with this beef bacon, we do want to take a little time as we do the flip to give it a massage on each side, then place it back into the fridge on the opposite side. And you notice there, my fridge slides across the hardwood if I try to open it with the handle. It's got such a good seal. That's why I have to use my fingers like that. It's crazy. But anyway, a week in there, and we come back, and we've got it all nice. You can see how much juice there really is. It's a beautiful wet brine. We're going to get this bag opened up, and then we're going to rinse that meat off for a good 4 or 5 minutes under cool water to get all of the excess salt and spices off. Put it on a wire rack back into the fridge, preferably overnight, but a minimum of 4 hours. Now we're going to cold smoke it. We're going to go with straight hickory for this. We've got a nice low coal bed. We're going to keep this thing around 100 to 125 degrees and let it smoke. We're only going to bring it up to an internal temp of 150. This is what it looks like after an hour. After 2, you can see we're really starting to darken up and get those beautiful flavors going. You know it's going to be delicious as that fat starts to render slightly. After 3 hours, this is what we look like, and we're going to put it back in the fridge, let it cool down so we can slice it. You can really see that beautiful marbling. I put it next to a piece of pork bacon just so you can see what we're dealing with there with that red meat and how it looks. We're going to get a couple slices off. We could have it for breakfast, but in my opinion, what would be better than a BLT? So I've got those into our skillet. We're going to make a little garlic aioli instead of just mayonnaise. We're going to whisk together the Worcestershire, the garlic, and the mayo to make our spread. Once we've got that done, it's about time to flip over those pieces of bacon. We're going nice and slow. We don't want them to burn on the outside while they're crisping up. We got them nice thick cut. We're going to get our leaf lettuce and our fresh homegrown tomatoes sliced up and ready. Now that bacon is looking good. Pull it off, pat it dry. We're going to cut it to fit our beautiful Texas toast. Now we've got our setup. Look at that. Amazing. And it smells wonderful. We're going to go ahead and butter up this Texas toast. Get it toasted on both sides. We want it nice and crispy and buttery. Once we bring that out of the pan, we spread that garlic aioli on both sides because we want that flavor everywhere. We take our setup, put it onto the toast, and you know the rest. We're going to top that toast. We're going to go ahead and cut this thing in half, and everybody knows diagonally is the way to go. And there we have a beautiful Texas toast beef bacon BLT. Hope you'll try this recipe. We're giving away a 5-piece cast iron lodge cookware set when we hit 1,000 subscribers. All you have to do is like a video and subscribe to the channel to be entered in the giveaway.